So are the nostrils still cleared up from last night?
Oh, wide open. Yeah, no, it was fantastic.
And the horseradish did not keep you up?
Not at all. No, it actually I slept very well after a long day of travel. Yesterday.
Understood.
So,
well, it's kind of a rite of passage for those that come to Indy to go to one of the St. Elmo affiliated restaurants, which Harry Nizzi's is one of them, and enjoy some shrimp cocktail and get fully indoctrinated into Indianapolis.
Yeah. Well, that first bite, I knew that it was good shrimp cocktail. It was excellent, though.
I know I did not forewarn him.
Well, you can't. That's what we were talking about earlier before we started rolling, was just that initiation. And you don't tell the new guy that there's heat there with the hopes, the anticipation that they're going to just scoop like a heaping scoop of cocktail sauce on top and then take the bite. And usually there's like a pause, and you can just see this glimmer in their eye, and that by glimmer I mean like a little welling up of tears,
right?
And then the mouth kind of opens up to try and breathe in some oxygen, and that moment when they open their mouth to breathe in is the rookie mistake, because all they're doing is sucking that heat up into their sinuses, and that is the moment of glory for those of us who just want to have a moment of being a little bit mean. And,
exactly.
Mutual acquaintance DC was here. Was it December of last year?
This was back in November. Yeah, it was last November.
Did it hit him hard?
We said nothing. We got a shrimp cocktail. He did the same thing. Big piece, lots of sauce on it. Goes in, and all of us, and we're all kind of watching him.
Right.
And he was like immediately like, "Oh my God, what just happened?" And
right.
It was,
Well, when I took that first bite, I knew I
can't repeat what else he said, but it was good.
I had to man up real quick.
Right.
I didn't want to come across like being that weakling or whatever.
Right.
But it was excellent. I would recommend anybody partake in that for sure.
No, it was a good evening. I had a good dinner, just relaxed at the bar, very casual. Monday Night Football was on. I mean,
yep,
it's all good.
It was good stuff.
Yeah. Where do you head to after this?
So I'm actually
further east, right?
Yeah, I'm driving into Cincinnati to one of our factories there.
Okay.
And that'll probably come up a little bit in the story here.
Sure.
So, but I'll be there for 2 days working on a brand new product. We had a machine catch on fire and burn up.
Oh, that's okay.
So solvent-based process for making foam pads.
Okay.
And had to shift gears quickly and to go to a water base, which that's where everything's going. So,
right.
Yeah, those are unexpected, events that take place that you have no control over, and you're like, how do we pivot and how do we handle this when you've got hundreds of thousands of people using a particular product?
Right, no big deal.
No, it's not a big deal at all. Yeah, exactly.
All right, cool. Well, let's roll into that, and we'll get a little more detail on that to whatever extent that you want to.
Sure.
All right. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Industrious Podcast. Thank you all for joining us from wherever you get your podcasts, or if you're joining us on the Accessa YouTube channel, thank you for tuning in. Today we are joined by Mr. Skylar Faria or Faria?
Faria.
Yep, okay,
Faria.
I want to make sure I pronounce that correctly.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Well,
depends on what account
you're saying
I'm
there's
in.
a chance.
It could be Faria, Faria.
You say PO, you can call me whatever you want.
Right, that's right.
Well, we'll get into baseball. Batting 300 is actually not too bad, right?
No, that's actually,
decent.
pro level, right?
Yeah.
That's MLB.
There you
exactly.
You look like a baseball player.
That's about it.
Yeah.
We got into that last night, but we'll get into that. Anyway, Skylar, some SurfPrep. Skylar, why don't you give a little introduction on yourself for our listeners and viewers?
Yeah, no, that's thank you. First of all, I'm honored to be here with you fellas and your company. Skylar, married to Mary, been married 35 years this year. We have 3 grown adult children, and they are all involved in the business. That was never a part of the plan in the beginning. And it just so happened that they're amazing human beings, and they all contribute quite well. Have four grandchildren, and that's thrown me a curveball. Things change when you have grandkids. So, yeah, and kind of live, California, North Carolina. We're always back and forth, bouncing back and forth because we have a warehouse and facility in North Carolina. A lot of our production happens there and also in California. So, life's good. Everything's a blessing. So that's pretty much for who I am. That's a brief snippet.
Yeah. So you're working both coasts, but you're originally from the New England area, correct?
Yeah, born. Yeah. We talked about
gosh.
that.
Are you a Patriots fan? Be honest.
No.
The first part of this admitting the problem is
it might end all right here.
You're a Patriots fan,
was it Deflategate?
Oh boy.
In in Foxborough, right. Yeah. Patriots fan. Something pretty special about that is my youngest daughter has been to three AFC championship.
And now you're just bragging.
Yeah, no, I just wanted, you brought it up. So I thought I would share that. So no, from New England, and Dad was in the military and ended up in California in the late 60s.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. How did you migrate from Massachusetts to California?
Right. It was his being in the Air Force.
Okay.
And it was $200 a year more in pay to be in California than in Oklahoma. So he said, let's go to California. It's $200 more a year in pay. Income.
Or just California versus Oklahoma.
Right, true.
I mean, Oklahoma's lovely, most parts, not all. But, I mean, California weather.
Right. No, it's true. A lot of red dirt in Oklahoma, but California is it's beautiful. You have pretty much everything. You can snow ski in the afternoon, scuba dive in the morning, all in the same day. So it is crazy. It's been good to us, but it's changed. So much has changed there.
Yeah.
So,
and you've been in Cali for how many?
Since
quite a while, right?
68.
Okay.
Yeah.
So quite a while. What triggered the North Carolina move?
Oh, wow. That was interesting. All of our products, the paper-backed white belt products that we have in our offering comes from Western Europe, and we needed everything was floating down through the Panama Canal, so we needed to get stuff across much quicker, and it made sense, to add on to the building we have in California. It just economically, it didn't make sense, and in North Carolina, it did.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting that it could be a place that we are operating out of full time.
Sure.
So we just bought another piece of property, and we're looking at putting another building up.
Okay.
So it's good. It's all good.
Yeah. I kind of jumped ahead there, but let's maybe backtrack. So before you got into this industry, I got to touch on this because I think as a sports fan, I think it's a cool story. You were pretty big into baseball growing up.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
It was a childhood dream. Lived in a real, had a fantastic, mom and dad and sister. But my dad was in education. My mom had multiple sclerosis, and so we got by. It was everything was okay. It's not good to compare yourself, to anybody else really in life. But I would look at the farmers, sons and daughters, and they were driving cars very much unlike what I had. So I had a very basic upbringing. And I knew that I had, from a young age, I had a lot of aspirations and goals to be something, to become something. And baseball was going to be my ticket. That was going to be my way out. And it would have been my answer to, where I wanted to ultimately be in life. So, and had an amazing high school, CIF, 2 years in a row. Ended up playing for a Division II college baseball team out of California. Won a college baseball World Series in '83. Came in second place in '85. And I was just blessed through all the hard work, the discipline, and all that. And I was signed by Milwaukee in '85. Played in the Pioneer League. And like I had mentioned last night, my vision changed in 30 to 45 days, and went from 2015 to like 2100. So the ball looked like a fuzzy white fur thing and not a crisp, solid, Anyway, that's kind of how that happened. And sports has been a big part of my life and always has been. Probably it always will be with my grandkids.
Sure, yeah.
There's so much that you can learn, dedication, teamwork, just stick-to-itiveness, staying in the game. As we all know, some games you can get an interception at the very end of the game playing Seattle and you win, the Super Bowl.
Right.
So that's going back to the Patriots.
Yeah, noted.
So
noted the reference there.
Or you can be down 28-3.
Yeah, and have a big comeback in the second half when the offense of the opponent gets
so I love being
conservative.
Surrounded by people that have that.
Patriots fans, I mean. You like being surrounded by Patriots fans. We get it.
Yeah, it could be that. Although there are some, I'm sure, that are annoying too.
Maybe a little bit. I don't know. You kind of alluded to a good point there. As we're both parents, our kids are still younger, and well, he's got a couple out of the house in college, but not off the meal plan. Mine are still all in the house. But you talk about the lessons learned in sports, which apply to any aspect of life. And I like to talk to my kids about, most kids will say, I don't like practice. It's boring. I just want to play the game, which is true. Practice can be boring, whereas the game typically is fun if you wanted to generalize the two. And we said, those who really excel at their particular sport, and of course then copy paste this example to anything, are the ones who sort of embrace the boringness of practice, and because that's where the work is gained, right?
Absolutely.
That's where it all happens, is in the practice. It's like the painting industry. 90% of the job is prep.
Yep.
But it truly is a lesson for those who are willing to, for younger people who are willing to listen to their parents and not just say, okay, Dad. But it's that aspect that you were touching on.
Yeah. And it is the practice. It's the repetitiveness. Mm-hmm. I used to take soft toss from my hitting coach in college, and you're in it when you wear a hole through your glove, and then you develop a hole in the heel of your hand.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there, you're looking at your hitting coach like, hey, Steve, my hand's bleeding. I have a hole in it from the knob of the bat. And he's like, 5 more. Swing the bat 5 more times. You do that. And it's, there's 5 more, and it's 5 more, and there's never an end, right? When you're going after something in life, there's no finish line. You just have to stay focused, and there's got to be passion and a why to make somebody go through that. And that's where a lot of people don't understand. They look at people's success in life, and they're like, how did they get there? And they don't realize what they did on the practice field. Yeah. And that's a big part of that sets us apart.
So what would you say the number one thing, if you had to kind of look back at the athletic career growing up from high school, college, and beyond, and those moments, right? You think back, and they're probably like flash memories of, I remember this, I remember this happening, I remember that happening. If there's one thing you say, boy, if I really am sort of introspective and look back at that period of time, that carries forward to what creates drive today, what would that, if you had to pick one thing, what would you say that would be?
Wow. Okay. I wasn't really ready for that. But when you ask the question, that's good. I mean, so the answer to that would be, all the preparation and all the agony and some of the defeats that you go through, right? I guess, so my last at bat in the College Baseball World Series, it was one of the longest, highest, deepest home runs I'd ever hit in my life. And as I'm rounding first base, you're in that moment of glory, and I'm rounding the bag there, and I'm like, holy, God, I freaking drove that ball. And then I got in the dugout, and my hitting coach came up to me. He's like, Skylar, he goes, was it worth it? And I'm like, Steve, I love you, dude. Not only was it worth it, it was just, it's so hard to, unless you've had that moment, and that was just it was just a small moment for me. It's not like you're in, the College World Series. I mean, like the Major League Baseball World Series or whatever. It was college, whatever. But yeah, it was. I guess I could. You look at what you achieve and the success you've had, and it has taken so much to get there, and people don't understand that struggle, I guess. So
yeah, definitely. Well, there are a lot of athletes, professional athletes. A lot of it, like in distance runners, for example, will say that when you're grinding in training or practice, and your body is saying, quit, like this sucks, I'm in pain, I'm not having fun, quit. Your brain is trying to figure out a way to tell your body, shut up, keep going.
Exactly.
And they say, envision the actual event that you're training for, or the goal you're trying to accomplish, not the objectives along the way, but the final goal, and picture in your mind crossing the finish line, whatever that finish line may be. And that's the motivation to keep. That's your brain's way of telling your body, nope, we're still going. That's sort of the mind over matter aspect. And I think that applies to, when you're in the batting cage and your hands are bleeding because of, they're beyond blistered and raw and what have you. It's that moment of, okay, well, when I hit the game-winning dinger, 500 some odd feet or whatever, that's that moment. And how do you apply that to business then, or life in general? Right.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like David Goggins, when you
100%.
When you share that. Yeah. It's there's a specialness, to that whole process. And when you go through it and you realize that you've accomplished something that seems insurmountable, that the mind's way stronger than the body, and it can carry you through things that, like you were saying, you would just want to give up. Because it's like, this is too much, but you keep the end in mind, before you even start the race, and that's why you're doing it. Yeah. So, that's why I've always respected people. I'm not, oftentimes people ask you, well, what's your favorite team? And for me, it's like, who's your favorite player? And I like that guy that's drafted, undrafted free agent or whatever, that moves through the process and pays the price and then becomes, that big name. Right. So, cool. Good stuff.
Transcending from baseball into, call it the real world, if you will, what got you into this industry?
Yeah, I was selling a pair of shoes at a Nordstrom. And it's funny, we drove by one last night, and every time I drive by one, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what got me into sandpaper. Kind of weird. Yeah. So a guy came in with a World Series ring on, sat down, and I'm like, I had mine on, and he sits down, and he's like buying a pair of shoes for me. I'm like, who are you? We played at the same college. He was 5 years older than me. So he had been on a 1980 team. And so it was an instant fraternal connection. And it was just like, tell me about, what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. And he's saying, well, what are you doing here? Selling shoes. I thought you were gone. You're away. I'm like, yeah. And I'm back. My vision had changed. And so he's like, hey, Skylar, I work for a sandpaper company. And I'm like, really? And I was like, what is that? And
this is not terribly intriguing at first blush.
Not really. And I had these like horrible visions in my mind. My dad used to make me sand stuff when I was a kid and grind stuff, just to keep me busy and
like
occupied.
Karate Kid.
Yeah, pretty much. Right. So we get to talking, and he's like, this is, I said, like, to where? Hardware stores or what? And he's like, no, I go into like Louisville Slugger. I go into big accounts that use a lot of sandpaper. And this was all foreign to me. And I'm like, it wasn't really registering. And he goes, let me tell you a little bit about it. And he said company car. And I'm like, I was thinking about my Toyota truck in the parking lot, outside the Nordstrom. I'm like, man, I could use a new car. And then that stayed with me, and he keeps talking, and he's like, well, he goes, I know you'll get the job. And I'm like, Lance, well, I need to learn more about it. And I go, but you said something about a company car. And he goes, yeah, you get a car, you get a gas card. And I was single at the time. And I'm like, man, I need that car. And that's kind of how it happened. So, it started there in 1985, late 1985, and I started selling sandpaper. I'll never forget one of the first accounts I went to was in oh my gosh, it was Los Angeles region. It was a small cabinet shop. I walk in, and back then I used to wear a tie. It's kind of weird. I'd wear a tie, and I'd go into this cabinet shop, and these two old guys in there, probably my age now, they said, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm with VSM Abrasives, and I want to, see if you guys would be interested in some sandpaper." And this one guy looks at me, he goes, "I got 3 orders for you." And I'm like, "Damn, this is easy." And he goes, "Here they are. Get out, stay out, and don't ever come back here."
Sweet.
I went, got my Chevy Eurosport, and I sat there, and I called Lance. I had one of the very first, cell phones then. I'm like, "Dude, this sucks. I don't want anything to do with this." And so I didn't have a clue. My degree in college was in finance. It wasn't in sales. I had very little public speaking, whatever, not a lot going on there.
Right.
And I'm like, what am I doing? And I thought I went through all this training, and everybody told me that this was good sandpaper. And I just, anyway, that was the start.
Yeah. So what carried you through, and kind of give us a little migration into what is today?
Yeah, excellent. I learned quickly, Vince, that it wasn't about the product.
Yeah.
It was, I was so focused on money then. I was just like money driven. It was like, I got to make money. I got to make money. I want to make a lot of money. And nothing really clicked with that kind of an attitude. And I started realizing quickly, hey, you know what? I need to serve people. And I need to identify where they're bleeding, because in the back of every building, whether it's a 10,000 square foot building or a 500,000 square foot building, there's a pipe leaving the building and there's blood flowing out of that thing. And these companies are bleeding. And I realized that, you know what, I've got to figure out how to stop bleeding. And if I can do that, and I can get there in 3 or 4 or 5 seconds with a potential, human that owns or manages that business, I'm gonna make headway. And so I started focusing on that, serving, and I forgot about the money. I began learning everything I possibly could about the other products that are in the marketplace, although I don't focus on them. I don't go into an account and say, "Hey, what brand do you use?" That's irrelevant. None of that even matters to me. It's more about what is the challenge you have and how can we stop the bleeding here.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of moving through that process. I started reading a lot of books. I would get deep into personal growth, personal development, and just became a student of the business. I actually loved it. I began to love it, and it didn't matter if I was selling pantyhose, sandpaper, cars, whatever. It all started to come full circle, and in the late 90s, I was making more money than all my relatives, and some of them were commercial real estate brokers or appraisers, that kind of stuff. It was because the focus was on the human and helping them do what they do best, and it was amazing. And it just
started to click.
It just started to click.
Yeah.
And one thing led to another, and it just it's been a blessing. So
that's great.
Did that answer your question?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then now lead us into what is today. Lead us into what, how did SurfPrep come about?
I had a vendor that supplied me with sanding sponges.
Okay.
And it's kind of interesting because, so let's say back in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, I had 5 furniture accounts that in Southern California, that the 5 of them were doing close to $1 million a year with me. And I supplied them all with 2-sided sanding sponges, single-sided pads, blocks, and all that. And I had a vendor supplier that one day, it was in December of 2003, Marina called Mary and I up. It was 6 o'clock in the morning, and she says, "Hey, by 5 o'clock today, I need an answer from you. I'm selling the business. I need to know if you want to buy it." And it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and I had a piece of toast, and I had some coffee with me. I looked at Mary. Mary used to pay the bills, and I'm like, "Hey, did you not, pay Marina?" That's before she said she made that offer to me. She's like, "There's no issues with that." And I'm like, "What are you talking about, Marina?" She's like, "I'm selling the business." I'm like, where's Tim? She says, Tim's not here. Tim would surf every morning. He would unload a 40-foot container of foam blocks that were coming in from England. And they had her dad had started, George Dixon started the company. In fact, he invented the sanding block, the foam sanding block, with a guy, Jack Woodyweese, in England. Anyway, she says, Tim's not here. He's not coming back. I'm like, well, when he gets back, I need to talk to him. And she says, you'll never talk to him again. I'm like, okay, what's up? She goes, Tim's no longer here. He's gone. And so we went through this, and I'm like, okay, so you're selling the business, and in my supply chain for foam abrasives, you're my main supplier. And I was like, if I don't buy it, who are you going to sell it to?
And by the way, I have how many hours to make a really large decision?
5 o'clock. And she's like, Skylar, I'll send over all the financials from my accountant. Long story short, after saying no to her and her father, George, and he was in his early 80s then, I just probably 7 times, I'm like, you can do this, Marina. You can do this. You can do this. We don't want this. Just keep supplying me product. And she's like, nope, don't want it. And after 7 times of saying, we can help you, we don't want to do this, because she was in an emotional state that just wasn't healthy, we ended up getting the business. And so that, now what's interesting is the majority of the revenue then was for the fingernail industry. So we have over 900 wholesale beauty supply warehouses around the world that Dixon buffers go into.
Okay.
So if your wives go into a salon here in Indianapolis, if they go look at the box is probably a Dixon box. Huh. So the brand and what George had created was phenomenal. And that all was because of his wife having hair salons and nail salons in the 70s. And she used to take wet, dry silicon carbide 9x11 sheets and cut them up and polish the nail after they used a Dremel.
Interesting.
It was incredible.
I thought you were going to tell me he developed it when he was still single as a great pickup tool.
No,
which would have been genius,
would have been, by the way. Yeah, exactly.
Also moderately creepy. Hey, ma'am, can I buff your fingernails?
Right. So, that's how that all started. And that's how I, I had a small distributorship. We were doing $1 million a year at that time. And I just shut that down. And I saw so much more opportunity in what Dixon could do and what they could offer. And that's when I started that quest of putting a sanding sponge on a tool, which was very, you would have 20, 30, 40 people in a finishing department in a furniture factory using pads, sanding chairs and nightstands and headboards and all that. And it was very foreign for them to take something and put it on a tool. So, that's when that all came about.
Yeah. When people are presented with an opportunity like that, it doesn't always go that way. I mean, there's a level of anxiety that comes with it because you're making a large commitment, both personal and financial. Did you feel like there was part of your drive was, look, this is what I want to do? Did you always kind of want to be an entrepreneur, or that was just part of the?
I wanted to have freedom.
Yeah.
So I didn't want a paycheck. I had known that all along, Vince, that I didn't want to be. So my background or my education was in finance. I was going to become either a broker or. I wanted to have revenue streams. I wanted to have residual income that would allow me freedom. And so entrepreneur, that wasn't in our family mix really. It was like, what's that? And there were no entrepreneurship programs back then that I recall of in college. I just knew that I wanted to be able to have that freedom, the flexibility, and that's why sales. I figured, man, if I can sell $3 million a year, if I've got a revenue generator that works for me, that's raking in $3-4 million a year, and if they're playing golf 3 times a week with key decision makers, how is that different than being in a shop? Right. You have to be in the shop to help people, but it's like, hey, it's connections, it's relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, that's what I wanted, and then I found myself, on that path when I started my own distributorship. But then when we bought Dixon, and then when I was like, this is worldwide. I could go from 7 figures to 8 figures, and then, beyond that blue sky vision, right? Mm-hmm. And it just, like, for me, it was that visionary kind of a thing. I'm like, this isn't going to stop.
Right.
If we just got to keep serving, and it will come.
Yeah.
So
was the name SurfPrep already part of the business mix, or did you guys do that? And where did that name come from?
There was a young girl that worked for us, and actually we sat around, I think 5 of us sat around a conference table, and we needed a brand. So we needed to have a brand where it wasn't just Dixon, because everybody would get our products. We would sell to large manufacturers, which you fellas would know of by name. And we would take all of our labels off, and we would put their labels on the box and ship them out.
Yeah.
Other manufacturers, they would have Dixon product in a box that had their name on it.
Okay.
So we did a lot of private labeling.
Sure.
We inherited that when we bought the business.
Okay.
So we needed a brand for ourselves. And so we're sitting around, and I'm like, folks, we got to come up with a name. And we took out pads of paper. We had a board on the wall or whatever, a sheet of paper. And I'm like, let's start talking about what we do here.
Right.
And I said, what's sandpaper used for? And people would say, metal. We just went crazy on this mind mapping thing. Yep. And it got down to surface. Okay, we sand surfaces. Why do we sand surfaces? Well, we've got to prepare them. Right. And then it was like SurfPrep. Like, oh, that's wild. And then we're in Southern California, and Jenny, she's like, well, let's make it look like, the name is SurfPrep. Let's make it look like a surfboard. I'm like, I don't care. I don't surf. That's fine. Let's do that. And then we're like, colors. And I'm big with supporting military, Yep. All that kind of stuff. I'm like, and I really am a patriot. Gosh.
Wow. Full circle.
Anyway, we're like, okay, red, white, and blue. I'm like, that's cool. It could have been green, yellow, and orange for all I. And then the original logo or branding or whatever, Jenny's like, well, we need to put a surfer on there. And I'm like, well, we can't do just a guy or a girl. So whoever did the drawing or whatever made it kind of look like a guy, girl, long hair, early 80s surfer, beach bum.
Yeah.
Spicoli. So you had Spicoli.
Oh, nice. Yeah. You don't want your grandson watching that at age 6 or 7.
Not yet.
Maybe 14. But so that's kind of how it's just everything. It's like there was no written plan, and we were just the energy. Is just like, man, we're going somewhere with this.
Yeah.
So that's how the name came about.
Cool. I had a feeling that at some point the SoCal surfing scene would come into play. So I'm glad I actually know the full background on how you guys came up with that. Any alcohol involved in that brainstorming session? Because sometimes that's the best ways. Everyone just start drinking and just start throwing crap against the wall, and we'll just see what sticks.
Right. It was like a Friday evening. We went out to and we had a beer. That's where it was solidified. We're like, this is it. We're going to go with SurfPrep.
Yep.
So some of the best business decisions are made over pizza and beer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like how you kind of made that comment. You said something effective. There was no plan, which obviously entrepreneurship doesn't mean that you have no plan. That's not exactly the means to a successful business. But if someone said, define in one sentence what business ownership or entrepreneurship is, I'd say, well, figuring out the first 80% and then pulling the trigger and just trusting yourself to figure the other 20 as you go.
Yeah.
And some people might say, well, it's more like 50-50, 70-30, but I kind of like the 80-20 rule.
Right.
And I think that aspect of, it's not so much not having a plan, it's just trusting yourself that you'll be able to solve problems as they arise as you go through the process.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people out there that maybe are, some would say risk averse. I think maybe a little bit that's attributed to a lack of trusting their gut that they can make those decisions when they are confronted with them.
Right. Absolutely.
So, without giving away any secrets or anything, where do you see things headed? What's the next evolution of the surface preparation or the abrasives market?
Yeah, it's there's just so much opportunity. We're such a small company, and relationship to you've got mammoth, right? Coated abrasive manufacturers.
Yeah.
We're carving our way through. And what's really cool is we were at an event this past March, and we had two different abrasive companies were sitting around a pool in Phoenix for a big kind of a trade show, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It was an all-pro event, and we had two different, I guess you could say, competitors, and we had beers come to our table. I'm like, who ordered this? And I looked at Mary, and I'm like, she's like, I didn't do this. And our group of 4 or 5 of us were sitting there, and it was it was a green and white company and a yellow and a black company, and they sent us beers over. They all came over, and at different times they're like, you know what, man, you guys are just awesome. And I respect everyone and every company that's out there making it happen. I respect them, and they're admirable, or they're doing their thing like we're doing our thing.
Yep.
And we each have our own way into the marketplace. But it was just the respect, that they're like, hey, you guys, you're really making things happen. And it was cool to have that validation. And after we had won the Visionary Award in 2015 for the SurfPrep sanding system, and we just won it again in 2023. And those two events, we're finding where there are so many opportunities that are opening up to us in so many different market segments. The product is ending up now in marine applications, automotive applications, acrylic. I mean, all different types of surfaces that need some form of preparation. And it's, I could do this another 10 years. Not sure that I want to be in it 10 years. I want to be on it for the next 10 years, let's say. But, we could 4X this thing, 5X this thing. And that all of the work, all the practice, all the batting practice, all the fielding practice, that's all been done. And right now, our focus is to pay attention to, where the product's needed, and just carve our way through all of that and get it to those users of the product. The guitar industry, and we're in 5-6 of the top major guitar manufacturers now with SurfPrep, where they were doing a lot of hand sanding, abrasives on the fingertips. Now they're taking a tool to it, and what took literally 20 minutes to sand a guitar body is now taking 5 minutes. And it's just, it's a huge paradigm shift. The surfboard industry, we've got shapers that are using the product. I had a shaper call me up, and he's like, Skylar, there's only one problem I have with all this. He goes, I feel like I need to lower my pricing on my surfboards. And I'm like, Chris, why is that? And he's like, dude, I'm sanding the board in, but less over half the time. And he's like, I don't feel like I should be charging what I'm charging. I'm like, Chris, you make an amazing product. You have a brand behind it.
Right.
People know you for that. And this is going to allow you to make more surfboards, because it's taking you 8 months to get the next one out to someone. Mm-hmm. So,
and your margin just went up. You're welcome.
And yeah, yeah, exactly. So, there's so much opportunity. We're opening up right now on average about 4 to 5 paint stores every month. And I just sit back and I'm like, man, do I deserve this? And then I quickly snap out of that. And I'm like, this is what I visualized for years. And it is amazing.
Yeah. You said you have 3 kids, all 3 in the business, correct?
Yes.
And a son-in-law in the business.
Yes.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because family businesses have a whole host of other dynamics that come into play. I think you may have mentioned this earlier on, that was not really part of the vision. It just kind of happened that way.
Right.
Talk a little bit about that. How has that gone, and how do you see that going?
I would have never dreamt in a million years that all 3 of our kids would be working in the company. They're all rock stars. And I do know, how it happened. It was the way they were raised. A lot of parents have issues with their kids nowadays. And the answer to all of that is time. So if you're there and you put time into your kid, that equals love. Because if they know that you're putting time into them, they know that you love them, right? So, and then making sure that they're associating with like-minded people. Now, like-minded to myself and my wife. So we had to make sure that we were associating with other parents, right, that were doing this. So you kind of keep them in this bubble, but not in a bubble, but you're just kind of leading them, you know, and it gives them the roots, and it gives them a foundation to work off of. You know, Hannah, like I mentioned last night at dinner, I mean, she's responsible, that young woman, she's responsible for almost $4 million in one vertical business. And I ask her, we talk about this, and she's like, Dad, I mean, yeah, I know how it happened, but I kind of don't, you know, but it was her making connections and having authentic relationships where she invested time into other humans, and it's just unstoppable. It's crazy. My son, yeah, you know, I was hard on him in a loving way, kind of like my dad I was sharing with you last night with the oleander bushes. So my son, same thing. He just works his butt off. And my youngest daughter, Madison, she's we're getting reports across North America where, like, God, Madison took care of me like nobody else has ever taken care of me before. And I'm like, wow, why am I blessed? You know, there's always a reason for all of this. And all of our other employees, you know, Chad would have never been a thing if we had not lost Austin in January. You know, that was, that rocked our world. And there are repercussions even today from that, which, you know, if somebody were hearing this, and there's reasons for everything, like some things haven't fallen to or come together this year like we were on schedule to do, to have happened. But you know, when one of your key players that is as energetic and dynamic, and the guy, I mean, he had an amazing relationship with DC Clark. And when you wake up one day at 39 years, you know, he's 36 years old, and you get the phone call, it's like, no, that can't happen. That doesn't happen in life. And this is somebody that, you know, I had worked very closely with, and they're gone.
Yeah.
You know, it's over. And that threw us, we were numb. It just, you don't plan on that. Right. And so we're numb. And I'm like, yeah, I had a guy tell me, hey, Skylar, when the grass is growing, you got to keep mowing. And this was coming from a father that lost his son to drugs and was very close with him. And he's like, I lost my son, but the next morning people were calling me up. They didn't know my son had passed. And they're like, where's my order? And Jerry was like, you just got to go. You got to keep going. You got to keep living life and remember those people for who they are. And so there was a 3-month stretch where we had 30 people. The day Austin passed away, I took 2 phone calls, people going, hey, we want to be on your team. And I was kind of upset. And I'm like, well, you know, this is weird timing. But at the same time, I kind of got it, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. And then, so for 3 months, I'm like, who in the heck am I going to get to replace this guy? That'd be like you guys taking your top, I mean, your top person. You're like, how do I replace him? Because the connections and relationships. So then we were never, ever considering a son-in-law. And he was very close with Austin. He drove over one afternoon, Mary and I are there, and he's like sitting there. He's like, I'm going to continue this. I'm going to continue what Austin was doing. And Chad had a thriving painting contracting business, you know, doing $2 million a year in painting houses. And I'm like, oh man, is this right? You know, how many more family members can I have? And that's been amazing. Austin would be sitting there with his pinky finger out, having a little daiquiri drink or whatever, and he would be, you know what, you guys, job well done. And Chad, thank you, because everything the seeds I planted, and you know, you've done an amazing job. So, yeah, thank goodness we don't have any more children to hire. You know, I guess, but although it has been a blessing. Yeah. So it's very special. Yeah, very special. We have family time, and we're like, It's Thanksgiving. You can't talk about sandpaper. And
how long does that last?
3 minutes. 3 minutes. Somebody's like, hey, did you get that purchase order? And then, oh my God. And my wife's like, hey, you know what? No.
Yeah.
So I'm sure your family's, you got it.
We try.
Dialed in. Yeah. So.
But it's, the interesting thing though is it's at least those moments where we're actually together. Like half the time he's going this direction, I'm going that direction, but we're actually there and like, oh, we're here.
Right.
There's that one thing I want to talk about. I mean, it'll take 5 minutes, and then an hour later we're serving dessert.
Totally. I think one of the unintended consequences or unintended things that you never realize as a family of you have a family business is the legacy.
Yeah.
The little things, the little decisions that your father made, right? Years ago. And I mean, those today, you wouldn't maybe be here today where you are. We wouldn't be where we are today had that not been part of life.
Certainly. Yeah, it both positive and negative in a sense of, how do you predict the future? Look at the past. And it's okay. You have to look backwards. Okay, what were all the things we did that were right?
Right.
Judging today, because at the time you may not know if it was right or not.
Right.
And then what were the things to say, oh, probably wasn't the best decision. How would I do that differently so that you can learn from it, and not repeat that mistake, or at least take that in consideration when making the next decision. And not necessarily the decisions that, you as a person made in that past, but as you said, the generation before you, what was their situation that they were in at that time? What did they do and how did that impact us?
Right.
To really appreciate, the hustle that they put in, because, every business, particularly a family business, because it does extend beyond the office. No matter how hard you try, it extends beyond the office. You're building, it's a ladder, and every generation's got their responsibility to add a rung.
Right.
And then when they get up to that next rung, not only to within your own business and family, but just societally speaking, you got to have that responsibility to put your hand back down and help the person beneath you pull them up as well. So it's really important to look back and understand, okay, the rung I'm standing on, who put that there to give me that leverage, to allow me to climb up. So I like the way you put that.
Powerful. Yeah, totally. For sure.
What advice would you give the next industrious person coming along who either has an idea or has a passion for wanting to get into something, maybe some piece of motivation, some agogism, if you will?
Yeah. Figure out your why. What's your purpose in life? Money only lasts so long, right? You can build, you can have real estate, you can have residual, you can have all of that, right? But unless you truly understand what it is that you're doing, you're probably never going to get to where you really want to go. So you've got to spend time and figure out, why am I doing what I'm doing? And hopefully it all circles back to serving. How can I impact another human's life to where whatever my service or product is, how is it helping them in life? That would be it. And then regardless of the product or the service, and then learn every single thing you can about yourself, and associate, get around with the other like-minded people. Listen to, the David Goggins. We were thinking about having that as a book of the month. We do a book of the month with all 34 of our employees.
Okay.
And they all read the same book. And I have people that work for us that the first day I met them, when I shook a man's hand, it wasn't the Amish handshake I was looking for from a 14-year-old, And now that individual, with the books they've read and the things that they've been around, that firm handshake's there. But if this is what you want, if that's the path that you want to pursue, figure out your why, your purpose, and then start serving. Yeah. And then don't keep a record book. you just can't. You'll make the deposits of time and energy in the North Bank, and you'll wonder if the return's going to come from there. And oftentimes, just simply because you served in an area, then there's other areas where I'm like, I've not done a lot over here, and it's just coming in. It's coming in. So, and I did that. I know from experience that if your focus is just money, that you're probably not going to really get to where you can ultimately be. Yeah. And just be passionate about that. I read a book by Joe Girard, and this guy sold like 3,000 cars a year. And the first thing I'm like, that's just not possible. And I'm like, I got to read the book. Because how is it? And when you read the book, it's the simplest thing that he did. It's so simple. It like slaps you across the face. You're like, you're kidding me, And it's amazing. There's so much opportunity in the world. There's so much opportunity for all of us that when that becomes your focus, I've been in situations like in the South with SurfPrep in the very beginning, and I was traveling with a sales rep, Michelle, and she's like, Skylar, we're going to go into this place called Stickley Furniture. And she's like, they don't really like people from New York or California. I'm like, oh gosh, okay, I'm from California. And she's like, I know you kind of have a louder voice, and she didn't really know me, right? Mm-hmm. Michelle didn't. She's like, just let the lady use the tool. I'm like, that's cool, Michelle. And we go in there, and there's this tow line with chairs on it, and we go to this back room, and I knew immediately this lady was seasoned. Okay, so we're going to the lady who has sanded hundreds of thousands of chairs. Yep. She knows more about sanders, probably air hoses, the sanding disc that you put on the sander, the backup pad, than anybody selling any of those products. And we put the 3x4 air sander in her hands, and she sanded for 15 minutes. And she turns around, and she looks at Michelle, and I thought we were in a Southern church. Mm. She's like, Michelle, who is this man again? And Michelle's like, well, this is Skylar. He's with SurfPrep. And she looks at me and she's like, sir, did you make this thing? And I'm like, yes, ma'am, I did. And she went off. She's like, my hand doesn't hurt anymore. My wrist doesn't hurt. My forearm. She said, I'm able to sand this chair. And what's weird is it's a square sander. It's not round. I've always used round. And it was little moments like that I'm like, I'm serving. And it was all by mistake, it's kind of by mistake. Mm-hmm. And I knew, and I take that energy and I place it into all of our people at SurfPrep in Dixon. And I want them to feel that, and they do feel it. But yeah.
Great story. Thanks for coming in today. Thanks for coming to Indy. We appreciate your time.
You know what? Honored. Love it. I've not done a lot of these things, it's all good, but honored to be here, honored to be working with you all. And the biggest thing is, how can we help people? And once we do that, we have a simple little plan, right? It's amazing what can happen.
Yep. Agreed.
But yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you
very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah,
no
absolutely.
Problem. And thank all you guys for joining us on this episode of the Industrious Podcast. Wherever you guys get your podcasts, if you're tuned in on the Accessa YouTube channel, thank you for doing so. If you're on the YouTube channel and you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do that. Hit that little notification bell right next to it so you can be alerted when new episodes like this one drop. We would appreciate it, and it won't cost you a dime. Thanks a lot, guys, and don't forget, as Skylar said, be industrious.